For now, big news coming in. Big claims, in fact, have been made by Iranian media. Two Indian vessels were forced back west out of the Strait of Hormuz by Iranian Navy. Firing was involved. One of the vessels, in fact, we have learned, was an Indian-flagged VLCC supertanker carrying 2 million barrels of Iraqi oil. Official confirmation in this regard is still awaited. But this is the latest update that we are getting at this point in time. We'll be going across to my colleagues as well to get you more details. But this is an important piece of information that we are getting right now. And if indeed it is an India-flagged vessel, then it is clearly, a big news. Mayank, my colleague, is joining us on the broadcast. Mayank, what is the latest that you can share with us?
Yeah, dashing all the hopes. We are hearing that two large vessels, they have turned back. And in that case, they were carrying high-value energy fuel products. And it is being said that IRGC has put up conditions that unless the blockade which has been put up by the US Navy, it is also removed because they feel it is infringement of the ceasefire, violation of the ceasefire conditions which were put up. So in this case, they have said that, the firing was done because the two VLCCs or two large vessels, they were merchant vessels, they were moving that side. So it has dashed all the hopes, and in that case, again, the sort of a blockade or regulation or control by the Iran has started. Remember, Iran has used Strait of Hormuz as its strategic tool in this entire situation. And it had been hardly trickling of vessels from that side, and that too in a very controlled manner. So we are back to the square one, wherein after certain kind of talks, we were hoping that at least the flow of energy will be regularized. But here what you see is kind of, again, the dashing of the hope.
Right. Any official word from here in India about the claims that are being made by Iranian media so far? Anything that you're hearing from the government here?
Not yet. We are waiting for the response from this side. But then, yes, we are hearing lots of reports have already come out from that area, and Iranian outlets have also put up that report. So we can, and one of the official report from the Iran has quoted this, that they have put up the conditions, and unless US blockade is removed, they'll be continuing with this kind of a regulation or control of the Strait of Hormuz.
Right. Also, can you tell us, if there is any official word from Iranian side?
Yes,
because
yes.
what we are reporting so far is something that's come in Iranian media, that's being reported by Iranian media. But officially, has some statement come from, say, IRGC or some official, version that you've got from Iran on this?
The reports which have come out, they have attributed this control or the regulation to IRGC only. So we are still waiting for the Iranian officials to come out and open for that. But then, yes, all the reports, they have quoted IRGC saying that they have put up this kind of a control because of US blockade. And they are saying that, and they are repeated, that this is kind of an infringement of the ceasefire conditions which were put up.
Right. This is an important piece of information that we are getting for our viewers at this point in time. Let's also recap for our viewers just joining us. Mayank, stay on with us. What we have learned, viewers, is that two Indian vessels were forced back west out of the Strait of Hormuz by Iranian Navy. It has been reported that firing was also involved in this particular incident. Now, this is being reported by Iranian media. And one of the vessels we have learned was actually an India-flagged VLCC supertanker that was reportedly carrying 2 million barrels of Iraqi oil. Let's go back to Mayank, who continues to be with us at this point in time. Mayank, just yesterday evening, we were thinking that maybe things will start getting better for vessels wanting to cross the Strait of Hormuz. But now it is getting quite volatile by the day, especially after what Trump said.
Exactly. What you're bringing out is right. And as we had said, that Strait of Hormuz has remained a strategic tool for Iran in that case. And they have put up, used it very
Mayank,
well.
Stay on with us. In fact, we are getting a reaction from Ministry of External Affairs as well. This is the latest update that we are getting at this point in time. Sources have said that MEA is likely to summon Iranian ambassador over the shooting incident. This is the update that we are getting for you. Let me go back to Mayank for more on this. Mayank, give us more details. What have the sources said?
So it is to strike control, as we have already repeated, and IRGC has brought this out. These may be sort of warning shots also, because such carriers, when they move, it is only to signify that their movement is being restricted and they should turn back. Keeping that, the VLCC, as you also brought out, one of them was India flagged. VLCC. They both have turned back, but this is a big message for the rest of the vessels that side, saying or bringing out, signifying that none of the movement will be allowed, or there'll be warning shots will be fired upon. So it brings the things back to the square one, wherein none of the vessels were allowed, or only those vessels which Iran felt. It also signifies or underlines that it is Iran effectively which controls the movement in the Strait of Hormuz, bringing back the old conditions in which we had been seeing, and this can further bring the US and Iran at loggerheads, because we were expecting that the ceasefire conditions will be implemented.
Mayank, please stay on with us. We have Wael Awad, the Middle East expert, joining us on the broadcast as well. Good evening, sir. Thank you for speaking with us here on Times Now. What we have learned, as per Iranian media reports, is that 2 Indian vessels were forced back after, they came under attack by the Iranian Navy. According to reports, vessels came under heavy firing. One of the vessels, in fact, is India-flagged VLCC, super tanker carrying 2 million barrels of Iraqi oil. And now what we have learned from sources here in New Delhi is that Iranian ambassador is likely to be summoned by MEA. Your reaction?
Well, as per the Iranian version, we have been told that they have already closed the Strait of Hormuz, and they have warned all the ships. They have issued a Navy warning that any ship to be passed, it has to get a prior permission from the Iranian Navy. So therefore, when this ship was moving in, they have tried to make it into the different direction. So they changed it, and they fire at it, and now they send it back to the Iraqi shore. And that is what the Iranian have been warning for all the ships coming from this side. There are 2 reasons for this. One is that the Iranian are saying that some people saying there could be some of the mining on those line which they have Iran warning the ship, or otherwise also because of Trump news that is controlling and continuing with the siege of the Iranian water, and that's why the Iranian have closed the Strait of Hormuz right now.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you speaking with us here on Times Now and sharing with us your perspective. We have Mr. Sushant Sareen also joining us on the broadcast. Good evening. Your reaction to what we have learned just now via Iranian media, and also the latest update coming in. As per sources, MEA is likely to summon the Iranian envoy.
No, I think the MEA should summon the Iranian envoy and register India's protest. Because at the end of the day, what Iran is doing by blocking traffic on the Strait of Hormuz is not according to any kind of international law. And for them to take over the Strait of Hormuz, which is an international waterway, and make it their domestic kind of a waterway, that's not acceptable to anybody. So I think India must register for protest. Secondly, I think this is Iranians upping the ante against the Americans. The Americans, of course, have a loud mouth. They have a president who keeps shooting off his mouth and saying things even when some negotiations are at a very delicate stage. Whether he's saying anything true or he's just making things up, nobody knows. But I think from the Iranian side, it's very clear that if the Americans are going to block any ship that goes to or from Iranian ports, then the Iranians will do the same to any ship which goes to or from any other port in the Persian Gulf and passes through the Strait of Hormuz. They'll block the strait for that particular ship. And that is what they seem to have started doing now. I don't buy what the previous speaker was saying, that there must have been mines out there and they were warning. If there are mines and a ship hits a mine, that's the ship's problem. That's not Iran's problem, is it? Why are they firing at a ship? Why are they forcing ships to turn back? If they want to take the chance of going through a particular area which is mined, that is their problem. That should not be Iran's problem. But clearly Iran is upping the ante. And that means that we are looking at this conflict getting a little more complicated. And perhaps maybe this is just negotiating tactics from both sides before they reach a final settlement, or this could be the precursor of the war flaring up again.
But the point, Mr. Sushant Sareen, is that, when the tensions really started after the war began and Iran started taking control of the Strait of Hormuz, started controlling which ship is going to cross the Strait of Hormuz and which won't, at that time, at least Indian vessels were being allowed. And now suddenly, why do you think Indian vessels are being targeted?
I don't think it's just about Indian vessels. I think it's all vessels now which are being turned back. And the reason for that is quite simple. One is that because the Americans have said that while the Iranians might allow ships to go through the channels which they have prescribed for the ships, the Americans will not lift their blockade on Iranian ships. So the Iranians are now responding in kind and saying that we will not allow any ship to go. Iranians earlier had said that they're not going to block any ship which is carrying fuel from Iraq and using the Strait of Hormuz. So quite clearly they are upping the ante. Whether if this move of theirs is only limited to the Indian ships, then of course it becomes an even bigger reason for India to protest against Iran. But it could also be because Iran probably sees that, look, the Indians have tilted on the side of some of the Arab Gulf states. And, maybe this is their way of indicating that India needs to bring greater balance in the relationship. But I don't think that is something that will be acceptable to India. Iran cannot dictate how India's foreign policy has to move forward. Iran also cannot dictate how countries must engage with each other if they want to use the Strait of Hormuz. I don't think Iran really has any locus standi legally or morally or politically on that particular standpoint. So clearly, but look, we are living in an era when international law has been made an act. And everybody feels free to flout it. So the Americans have done their bit to flout it. The Iranians are doing their bit to flout it. And all other countries are caught in between.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sushant Sareen. Appreciate you speaking with us here on Times Now and sharing with us your perspective. My colleague Srinjoy Chaudhary also joining us live right now. Mayank continues to be with us. Srinjoy, what is the latest that you can share with us in this case? What has happened?
Well, very clearly, this is an example of how fluid the war situations can be. Here you are. Some days ago, the Iranians had said that the countries whose ships that would be allowed to go through the Straits of Hormuz would be Russia, China, India, and so on. Now, Indian ships are being targeted. Indian ships are being attacked. Now, this is not something India is very happy with. India finds it extremely unpleasant. So naturally, the Iranian ambassador could well be summoned, and he would be told that, look here, you had said that Indian ships would not be targeted. And if Indian ships are not going to be targeted, why have you done what you have done? It's a very clear answer from the Indian government that, look, this is not how you do things. If Iran is a friendly country, why are you attacking our ships? And if you are attacking our ships, surely you should make amends, beginning with an apology.
Right. Should just stay on with us. Mayank, any update on, from the vessels? What about the crew members, etc.? I mean, because firing was also involved. So do we have an update on that front?
Yes, we have heard that they have all the merchant vessels, they have a dedicated communication channels. So the firing and the reporting of it was heard on the two different channels. And that has come out actually. What we need to signify is that IRGC has clarified that ships can only move. Firstly, they'll have to take permission from IRGC for the movement. Secondly, they'll be moving only through the corridor which has been marked by IRGC. So that is to emphasize the control and regulation of Iran on the corridor which is on that side. And no other ships beyond that corridor or without the permissions will be allowed to move. But in this case, while the ships were moving, warning shots, as we are trying to gaze out, were fired. And the ships had to move back, thus giving a kind of a message to rest of the ships, because it has already been communicated on channels, which is dedicated merchant vessel channels. So all the vessels glued to that channel or communication channel would have already got the message that they have not to ply into that area, or they'll not be moving into that area. Thus, it is effectively a kind of a complete block on that side. So the things, as we were saying, to repeat it again, is that things have gone back to the square one.
Absolutely. Shinjoy, things back to square one. And now what we can say is that there is complete control of IRGC on the Strait of Hormuz. And this time, it's clear that it's not really going to, distinguish between the countries that Iran has friendly relationships with versus the enemy nations, which was the case earlier. Remember, in the beginning, at least one thing was clear, that it's blocked only for ships of enemy countries, but Indian ships were being allowed. China never had a problem, but now it seems that's not going to be the case anymore.
Yes, it's also a question about which part of the Iranian government is deciding on what. Now, the Iranian government had said that, well, Russian, Chinese, Indian, and other ships, friendly country ships, would go through. Now, another part of the Iranian establishment, the IRGC, said, no, that's not so. All ships, clearly. Also, it's important to find out whether this attack was actually made by mistake or whether this was a deliberate attack. Either way, it can be condemned very seriously, because this was completely unexpected from Iran, and Indian ships have been going through, 8 or 9 have gone through. So what is the logic in firing on the 9th and 10th?
Right. Stay on with us, Shinjoy. Mayank, now, as per reports, there were 2 Greek vessels as well that failed to cross the very crucial waterway, the Strait of Hormuz today, as per the marine traffic data. And it's all because of the statements that perhaps we got from Donald Trump, the US president, because just yesterday evening, Iranian foreign minister had declared that Strait of Hormuz was completely open for commercial vessels till the remaining ceasefire period. That's when we saw even crude oil prices falling over 10%. There was a sense of relief in the energy market as well. But after Trump declared that US Navy blockade is going to continue, Iran was back to, what its position was earlier vis-a-vis the Strait of Hormuz, and see what has now started happening.
Absolutely right. And exactly this is what we are trying to say, is that the development has dashed all the hopes. And in fact, it has complicated the kind of situation which is existing in that area. So what do we see ahead? We need to wait for some time how the US is going to react to it, because it is effectively a complete blockade to the kind of movement and vessels, which can be civil vessels or which can be merchant vessels. So as you rightly brought out the facts, that even market had reacted very positively to it. But then what we see is actually complications, and things are back to the square one, and wherein all the traffic, it has come to an halt.
Right. Mayank, stay on with us. Shinjoy continues to be with us as well. My colleague Shivam also joining us live right now from outside the Ministry of External Affairs. Any official word yet from MEA? Because sources have suggested that Iranian ambassador could be summoned very soon.
Exactly, Hina. In fact, we are present just outside the headquarters currently here, Ministry of External Affairs, the Jawaharlal Nehru Bhavan, and what we have been given to understand from our sources is that, it's rightly mentioned, the ambassador Mohammad Ali would be summoned. It's likely that he will be summoned by the Ministry of External Affairs, and then again the series of questions will be asked about what are the kind of latest updates that are coming in, what was the latest development that has happened, and what was the conversation that was going on. As our colleague rightly mentioned, that markets have also reacted negatively to it, and we are also waiting for the official response from US as well. So during the entire thing now, this is the place from where it is likely that the ambassador of Iran to India will likely to be summoned, and then the series of questions will be asked to him about the latest development, about the earlier deal that was happened and how come this entire thing has happened. Remember, again, we are going through a sensitive patch where, again, every day there are different news coming in. Donald Trump again announcing a complete blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, and after that the tension escalated. But the news that recently came in intensify the seriousness of the situation which is currently happening. And that is why what we've been given to understand from the sources as far as now is that it is likely that he will be summoned and India will take action onto this course. The questioning will take its place and then the connection to the state of Iran will also be made. So these are the latest development that we can tell our viewers. Again, initial news that are coming in, the details are yet to be followed about what exactly happened, how this entire thing will pan out, and what will be the upcoming developments as well as something that we need to wait for some time. But as of now, what we've been given to understand is, yes, this is likely that he will be summoned for now.
Right. Shivam, stay on with us. Pathikrit Pain, strategic affairs expert, also joining us on the broadcast. Good evening. Thank you for speaking with us here on Times Now. Your thoughts on the latest development that has come from, about the Strait of Hormuz. As per Iranian media, 2 Indian vessels were forced to return following reports of gunfire from Iran's Revolutionary Guard. And also we are learning that these vessels included an India-flagged supertanker carrying 2 million barrels of Iraqi oil.
Well, these are the complexities of war where, it is extremely difficult to predict as to what is going to happen tomorrow. And both sides, the Iranians and the Americans, have left no stone unturned in making things extremely challenging for any country which passes through that region. The problem with Iran today is that we do not know who is giving orders to IRGC. There might be a stringent dichotomy between what the government of Iran is saying and what IRGC is doing, because IRGC is probably the de facto power center in Iran today. And this kind of incident is not going to go down very lightly with the Indians, given the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is one region through which a considerable amount of Indian oil passed through. And this kind of incident would have repercussions. The problem, again, I reiterate, is that the whole power structure in whole of Iran is so skewed up right now that today's IRGC might be blamed and tomorrow IRGC will come out with a statement and say we are not involved in it. How do you deal with a situation like that is a big question mark. And that's where I think while India must, summon the Iranian ambassador, the reality is that even the Iranian ambassador might be clueless about what is happening. And in the middle of this, I reiterate that the Americans have not made things easier for any country either. Today, you have such kind of fog of war over there that today, one day ceasefire has been declared, the next day it's getting called off, third day the blockades come, both days the blockades get off. The Americans are threatening the same way for any, ship which probably have a port of call in Iran. So all in all, eventually countries will have to bypass the Strait of Hormuz, because otherwise I do not expect situation to get better anytime soon.
Right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us here on Times Now, sharing with us your perspective. Let me go back to my colleagues who continue to get us more information on this developing story. Srinjoy, Mayank, as well as Shivam are live with us. Srinjoy, when the war started, there were around 28 Indian vessels around the Strait of Hormuz. Several of them made their way back home. Can you tell us how many are still stranded there?
Yes, about 8 or 9 have come back, which means about 20 are still there in different ports, and two were on their way back in large super tankers when this firing happened. Now, this firing has been extremely unexpected. No one imagined that the Iranians would fire like this. Also, as we have been saying again and again, who is in charge in Iran? And that is one. First of all. Secondly, even if someone is in charge, there are people there who may be trigger happy, who may be worse than trigger happy. And this is what happens when people are trigger happy. They are looking out for tankers. They have weapons in their hands, and they see a super tanker going, and they say, okay, here is oil coming in from whatever it is, Qatar or Bahrain or Saudi Arabia, and let's fire at them. And that's exactly what may have happened. So we would expect an understanding of the situation and an explanation from Iran. The first question the Iranians will have to answer is the fact that several days ago, You said that the Russians, the Chinese, the Indians were our friends. So suddenly, why are you firing at us? And didn't you even warn us in advance that, look here, we will fire at your ships if they attempt to go through the Strait of Hormuz? If you haven't, then are you going back on the promises you made earlier? So this is a very sticky question. Yes, of course, it's war, and war is unpleasant, and also the situation becomes fluid every day. One day, and this one particular.
Well, once again, Shivam, any update from sources on the condition of the tankers and also the condition of the seafarers?
Well, Hina, what we've been given to understand is that the moment the firing started, the vessels were forced to go back. The two vessels, Indian flag vessels that were, being a part of the entire crew that was coming in, on which the firing happened. That is the initial information that is coming in. The details about the current condition is something that is yet to be remaining. That today, remember, at the ministry briefing as well, we have been given to understand from the department that they said that everybody is safe. But the point is, this particular news of the firing came after that particular press briefing happened. So again, the latest information officially is something that is yet to be coming in. From the sources, what being given to understand is that to get the clarity of what Dr. Shinja was saying, that what is this confusion all about? One day the Strait of Hormuz is open, another day it is closed. One day you are allowing it, another you are not allowing it. What is the pre-decided norms that were laid down between both the countries, between the countries who are allowed to let their ships pass through the entire Strait of Hormuz, who are allowed to let their ships pass through the entire Strait of Hormuz, and how come suddenly this change of stance coming in? Because this is coming at the time when there has been dual blockades. Remember, we have seen not just Iran, but even US has said that they will increase the blockades at the Strait of Hormuz. So at this particular time, it remains crucial to see what kind of procedures will be followed, what kind of serious questions will be asked to the ambassador, and what kind of following developments will take place after a certain point of time is something that we need to wait for it, because it is initial information. It is likely that the ambassador will be summoned at the headquarters in a very short time.
Right. Stay on with us, Shivam. Let me go back to Shinja Chaudhary once again. Shinja, can this also be a part of strategy from the side of Iran, given that on Monday we are likely to see second round of talks between America and Iran? That's what reports are suggesting. Because remember, when this war also started, Iran this time expanded the scope of the war and involved the Gulf countries. And at that time, at least the friendly countries like India, China, etc. were spared. Their tankers were not getting targeted. Their tankers were allowed to cross. So do you think in this phase 2, after ceasefire gets over, the temporary truce, now Iran is planning to involve these countries as well? Can it be some kind of a strategy?
Well, first of all, if you are, what kind of strategy will entail firing at friendly countries? How strategically successful are you when you say, okay, you're a ship from a friendly country and we will fire at you? Does that strategy actually benefit anybody? Does it benefit the country that is being fired upon? Does it benefit the country that is doing the firing? So if this is strategy of any kind, how successful is it? And how beneficial is it to both countries? And not only the countries involved. Today, if you're firing at, let's say, an Indian ship, tomorrow you could fire at a Russian ship. Day after tomorrow, you can fire at a Chinese ship. Also, think of the tanker owners. Think of the captains of the ships that are going through the Strait of Hormuz. The captain of the ship may say, well, I'm a Russian tanker, but if an Indian ship has been fired upon, how am I any different? I am a friendly country and I could be fired upon as well. So is it beneficial or is it counterproductive? This is something the Iranians will have to look at. Right. At best, the Iranians can say it was a mistake. At best, they can say that the people who did the firing did not take the right orders.
Right.
So all
the war began and Iran started targeting the American assets in the Gulf. At that time, experts were of the view that this is being done to just put more pressure on America so that Iran is able to get an upper hand. Iran is able to extract what it wants from America as far as a possible deal is concerned. So maybe, I don't know if it's a strategy, if it has happened by mistake, we don't know. We're still waiting for an official word from Iran on this. But thank you very much for now. Appreciate you all for joining us with your inputs. Heading into a short break, we'll be back with lots more. Stay with us.